My name is Ronald Melf.
My name is Rother Boswell.
My name is John Tipton.
My name is Robin Cole.
My name is Charles R. Merkel.
And I'm Nate McLaughlin.
I'm Blanche Valentine, and this is Palm Coast View.
Welcome to Palm Coast View. On today's podcast, we have the CEO of the Family Life Center, Trish Giacome, with us as our special guest. And the Family Life Center is our domestic violence and sexual violence center, a crisis center here in Flagler County, the only one that we have. And so we want to talk to Trish today about some of the issues that we have here in the county relative to sexual violence and domestic violence. Charles Merkel is going to be our moderator today. And so at this moment, I'm going to hand it over to Trish so Trish can introduce herself, and then we will go from there. Thanks for watching.
I have
Trish,
a question.
I'm sorry.
I was wondering, we have this big push now, the statement of defund the police, which I do not agree with. But I agree with there should be some resources spun off to organizations like yours. Now, my question is, if that is done, how would that work with law enforcement as far as you kind of being an in-between, or do you think you can be an in-between to these situations? Because I think that's another problem of sticking people who are used to handling everything with force into a domestic situation.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, Ronald. And, we are great partners with our Flagler County Sheriff's Office, Flagler Beach Police Department, and the Bunnell Police Department. And so we recognize that law enforcement's stance is very different than ours, but we have to work together, right? So, they're looking for the crime committed. And so we look at domestic violence beyond just what the legal definition, of domestic violence is. So the legal definition talks about any abuse, any, anything that's going to cause harm and stalking. But some of the things that we talked about, such as emotional abuse, it doesn't raise to the level of a legal issue. So law enforcement may not even recognize that. We've had officers say, well, that sounds like that's an argument between you and her, and so there's nothing I can do about it. And they can't, because it doesn't raise to that legal definition. So it is important for us to continue to partner with our law enforcement agencies. One of the things that we strive, here, particularly in Family Life Center, is to educate our law enforcement officers. And so we work with Sheriff Staley to do a training with our officers in looking at the totality of the scene when they arrive. Who has the power? What does that look like? What resources are available? How do we respond? Law enforcement can contact, and they have access to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So they can get on-site support. So if they show up at a home and they feel like an advocate is important, they can call the Family Life Center. They also have victim advocates themselves. So we really try to make sure that we're working in partnership so that we know how to best support survivors. But again, that only happens if law enforcement is called, and law enforcement isn't always called. And so if there was additional funding, and I say this is, over the last couple of years, the sheriff added a domestic violence analyst to his staffing. And I think that Nikki's contributions have been immeasurable in identifying where we stand as far as a community. Now, he'll tell you, particularly tomorrow, he's having his DV awareness, his DV Summit update and for Awareness Month. And he will tell you that the domestic violence crime is down, crime overall is down. And that's a wonderful thing. Again, domestic violence doesn't always raise to the level of law enforcement involvement. Right. So although the statistics show that law enforcement isn't as involved, it doesn't mean that our services haven't been at a peak during this pandemic. So it's one of the things when we talk about funding, which I'm glad you mentioned, Ronald, because the Family Life Center is looking at some significant cuts. Again, not because we're not doing the work that we are supposed to be doing or because we're in trouble of any kind, but because unfortunately, the state government is giving us less money by about $185,000, which is 14% of my overall budget. So if law enforcement were to give us additional funds, we would certainly talk about how to best utilize that. I love the ankle monitors that are being used. They've actually come to our public location here in Bunnell, and because a monitor has gone off, because while we had a survivor seeking services, the perpetrator was driving not too far from us. So, and law enforcement has responded in a timely fashion to make sure we were safe. And so, maybe we spend some more money on some ankle monitor bracelets, or maybe we look at a different intervention that might be helpful. But, I know that the sheriff's office here in particular is very amenable to what we can do to protect survivors and help keep our community safe.
Well, Trish, let me ask you a question. Aside from Nate writing a big check from his vast financial resources, what can we as a community do to support the Family Life Center? And secondly, what should we be doing as a community to support the Family Life Center?
So, I always tell people, first and foremost, every single dollar counts. And I know that, some people think, oh, I don't have a lot of money. And, I think about, we have a supporter that has been sending us $25 a month for the last 13 years. And those $25 a month, they go towards the work that we do. And so you don't have to have big dollars to send us.
Let's pause right there.
Yeah.
And a light just went on. I don't know if you could see over the top of my head. I think about you. I mean, we fought for government funds for the 8 years I was there. Every year we tried to get more. And it never occurred to me. There's a little fund at my church that I put $5 a week into. And you think about, you got 500 members, and if every member put $5 a week into that. So if 25, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, whatever it is, I'm going to make that commitment to you that I'll get with you offline here and we'll figure out what that is. But I think that's an easy thing to do. And think about it. There's 115,000 residents here. If half of them, let's say 50,000 people committed to $10 a week, does that solve any financial problems for you to get you the things you need?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're saying. It doesn't have to be grand dollars. The thing is that in order for us to maintain some of our federal and state funding, we need local dollars. So if we don't get the local dollars, we will automatically lose some state and federal funding because of matching purposes. So there's that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which means that your $1 can bring down $4. So your $1 really in total comes to $5, which for us, that's a big deal. And that's kind of, that's exponential. So $1 a day, think about what you spend at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts for a coffee, I
need to give up the donuts anyway.
If somebody does want to send money or donate to the Family Life Center financially, how do they do that?
So the best way, and I know it's kind of the old school snail mail way, but send us a check. You can send us a check to the Family Life Center at P.O. Box 2058, Bunnell, Florida, 32110. And if you want to drop a check off to the Family Life Center, our public address is 4721 East Moody Boulevard, Unit 503, again in Bunnell. And we are we have PayPal online. So you can click to our website, which is www.familylifecenterflagler.org. Just click donate and you can send us money that way. So we're really trying to make it as easy as possible for folks to help us out.
Well, Trish, two more things that I want to just touch on really quick because we don't have not that much time left and I want to let the rest of the group ask. But two things. One of them is as far as victims or families of victims or people that believe their family members or loved ones to be a victim potentially of domestic violence, sexual violence. How can they, who should they contact? How can they do that? And then secondly, with COVID, are there still volunteer opportunities at the Family Life Center?
So both excellent questions, John. So the first thing is if individuals are interested in getting some information, they can contact us in two ways. They can call our our 24-hour helpline, which is 386-437-3505. Now, we have recently, within the last several months, added a texting feature to that hotline. So you can text a question and an advocate will respond to you. And you can say, my son, my daughter, I think, I'm not sure. And they will walk you through that. The other thing is they can always call our outreach office. So if it's not an emergency and you think, well, this can wait until Monday or Tuesday, you can give us a call on our non-emergency line at 386-437-3505. 437-7747 and speak with an outreach advocate. And they will talk to you over the phone. We can do Zoom, we can do in office, whatever makes you comfortable, we are available. We are practicing social distancing. We will provide masks and we have the sneeze guards and all of that. So we want to make sure people are comfortable and receiving the information in the format that's most helpful. And so lastly, as far as volunteers, so first and foremost, the Family Life Center is always looking for volunteers for our board of directors. We are currently seeking applications for this upcoming fiscal year. So if you're interested, please email me, contact me, give us a call. We are limiting our individual volunteer opportunities, excuse me, again, because of COVID. However, we have recently received some funding for new furniture. So we're putting together some bunk beds. So if you're interested in handy, give us a call. That's happening in the next couple of weeks. We have some outdoor volunteer opportunities where you're not necessarily in the shelter. So like mowing the lawn. We have a maintenance guy, but he's continuously asked me for help. So we'd love, if you're a gardener, our garden is pitiful. We could love somebody to come in and kind of help us with that. There are clerical things, there are digital things to help us with our social media. You could do that from home. We're enticing not just older folks, but even young teenagers. If they need community hours for their graduation, give us a call. We've got some ideas. And so any of those things, we're willing to work with you and say, okay, what are you looking to do? And then how can we plug you in? There's always opportunities here at the Family Life Center.
I got one more real quick, and I just want to answer real quick.
Sure.
A lot of times folks may not want to go to a shelter or something like that because they have pets. They may not want to leave their pet. Does the Family Life Center have anything to do to accommodate pets if in the event that a victim has one? So
at the moment, we do not. We only take pets that provide assistance. So pets with individuals with disabilities who have a pet. However, and I'm kind of giving you the inside scoop here. So the Family Life Center received a national grant, a very competitive national grant from Red Rover to put an on-site kennel. And so we are elated to have that funding. We applied for that money last fiscal year and were awarded it this fiscal year. So we have purchased items and we will need many hands on deck to put this together. And we're hoping to have it operable within the next few months, probably by January, so that victims can bring their pets. Their pets will have their own space outside in our beautiful backyard. They can visit with their pets. We've partnered with a local veterinarian. We are partnering with the Humane Society as well. They were a partner in our grant application. They are elated for us to have an on-site kennel. So we are super excited about it. And so you will hear more about that. But if you're interested in helping us put that together, that's going to begin happening probably over the next 30 to 45 days. Once we get all of the supplies in, we're waiting for everything to come in. You can give us a call, let our administrative assistant Shirley know, and she'll put you on the list. That way we can contact you when we are ready to do boots on the ground. It'll probably be over a few weekends that we put this together. So thanks, John, for letting us know. But
sign me up. I can't build a Lego house, but I'll do whatever I'm asked. Sign me up for that.
Well, listen, we need some muscle power to move some things over to make it happen. So we'll use you for that. And again, we will find a place for you.
Got it. I can do that.
I have a question.
Sure.
You're always looking for extra money, and there's always these people that say that nonprofits, more money goes to the top than to what the money needs to. So can you just talk about what exactly you're doing with the money? I know that you probably provide housing for a lot of them that leave, but can you just talk about what the money goes for?
Sure. And that's a great question, Robin. So Family Life Center is audited every year. Our administrative rate right now is at 16%. What that means is that 16 cents out of every dollar is what pays for our admin. Just so you know, admin consists of me, a finance director, and an administrative assistant. Everybody else is direct service. 16% is actually very low. The average we have maintained a 16% rate for at least or less, because at one point we were at 14%, for the last 10 years. So we are very fiscally prudent, just so you know. So that's the first thing. The other thing is that our funding pays for a variety of things. So it pays for shelter, some of the shelter costs, right? So FPL, water, you know, the things that you would normally pay for your home. It pays for some of the basic things that grants may not necessarily pay for. So sometimes we have to purchase medication for women who are staying in our emergency shelter. They don't have insurance and a grant won't pay for that, but they need this medication. And so we'll pay for their medication. So some of the money that is sent to us, and we call those, funds that we can we have the discretion of using. We pay for bus tickets for women to travel back to a safe environment. Recently, we had a mom and her little guy, and they had to go to California because that's where their mom was, and it was safe. Their perpetrator was here. And so a ticket to California, we looked at plane tickets, we looked at train tickets, we looked at bus tickets. So we'll pay for transportation for victims to get to a safe place. Then we also pay for local transportation. If a victim has a job, but doesn't have transportation and she doesn't come to shelter because she can't get there, then if that's a barrier, come to shelter, we'll get you to work. And so we'll pay for local Ubers and taxis. We have an agreement with Alliance Taxi to help us out, and they bill us monthly. We pay for things if we have a victim who comes in and has special dietary needs, they're gluten-free or diabetic. We want to make sure that we have food available for them. So we will have to buy those specialty items. So anything you can think of, I assure you that those funds are used for those kind of out of the box kind of things. We've helped women pay a month of their car insurance so that they don't lose the car, so they can continue working. We've helped women with their first month's rent when they move into their housing. So there's been a variety. It just depends on what the need is, how we can help. We've helped with school supplies and clothing. We had a woman complete a CNA program, and she didn't have the money for her uniform, the things that they use at school. So we helped her. We bought 2 sets so that while one is being washed, she could use the other one so she could go to work. So things like that, non-slip shoes for work. I mean, just those kind of odds and ends that come up that you just can't account for. So the money that's given to us is typically put through a, kind of that process is, okay, let's make sure that survivors have what they need and how do we best support them. So I let people know that, we are a nonprofit here in Flagler County, and they're welcome to come in and talk to our finance director. And, I'm very transparent in that way. If there's any specific questions, they can come in, they can look at things. We put our financials on our website. So our 990s are on there so people know exactly where money is going. I want people to know that we are good stewards of the funds that they give us. And so, if there's any questions, they're welcome to come in and say, hey, I want to look into this. What's going on here?
Are you supported by the United Way?
We are a United Way partner agency, and we are financially supported. We do fall under one of their 3 categories. We fall under health. So we have been a United Way partner for many, many years. And I will tell you, they are pretty stringent. If an agency is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, they will pull funding very quickly. And we, unfortunately, that happened to us many years ago at the beginning of my tenure with the previous leadership. So I know firsthand how the United Way works. And so we want to make sure that we are providing the best service at the best standards.
Yeah, I was their resource director for several years.
Yes.
And I wanted to also say that I belong to an organization of magicians. And we did a show for your counterpart in Daytona.
The Beacon Center.
Yes, we did a show for them. And I've yet to been able to do one for you up here. So I was wondering, is there some way we can talk, being that it would have to be done virtually, of course. But I thought that if not a fundraiser, maybe we could just do something for entertainment.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Ronald, you give us a call on the non-emergency line, and I'll connect you with our staff, and we'll start talking about what that looks like. I would love to have you.
Sure.
I'm really glad, Trish, you asked us and pointed out that we shouldn't judge those who choose to stay. Having known people in the past, I think they're very, very brave, especially those who stay for the sake of their children. That is a unique perspective. I wanted to know, to help us build empathy. I know Hollywood is Hollywood. I'm sure there are things to stay away from, but can you recommend any movies or books that actually do give a very realistic impression? Something, again, just to help us build some internal empathy toward those
Mm.
going through this?
You know, Charles, I gotta tell you, I'm not a huge fan of movies
Mhm.
because of typically the depiction of victims is just not very accurate. I liken to looking at documentaries, preferably,
Mhm.
where we're hearing, victims speak on their own accord. But I don't have any that come off the top of my head. As far as books are concerned, I've got a plethora. Unfortunately, in fact, it's interesting. I've got several here as well. But off the top of my head, I can't necessarily come up with one that would build empathy. There are just so many that are helpful.
Mhm.
And and honestly, I read so many. I'll be more than happy to perhaps send you a couple few on the list. I think that the biggest thing right now, and it's not necessarily domestic violence specific, but Brene Brown is probably one of the most prolific in talking about empathy and what empathy looks like. In any of her books, she has a podcast, but she really talks about kind of looking at things from a different perspective, just as humans, and how that impacts our daily living and our outlook. So I think those are that's a pretty significant author in this time. The other thing is I read a lot of books about trauma, and so I got to be honest. If one of the best books I've ever read about trauma is by Bessel van der Kolk, "The Body Keeps the Score," and it really has some highlights about trauma. Again, not specifically domestic violence, but young children who have experienced trauma and how that then correlates into us as adults and decision making and relationships. And I think that that's an important piece because we look at the adult forgetting what has happened to this adult previously. And that works for both perpetrators and for victims. So those would probably be the two authors that I would absolutely kind of have on our shelf, or on your shelf rather.
Okay, thank you. And I know in this conversation, we focus primarily women being the victim, the men being the perpetrator. And I don't know the statistics. I'm sure that's what it's usually, but it can go the other way. But I really liked how we pointed out holding men accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a couple of local marriage counselors,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful people, and their whole thing, they start with the man. They
Mm-hmm.
found out in their experience, 8 or 9 times out of 10, they get the man fixed, all the other problems go away.
Mm-hmm.
So, not sure what that
Well,
says about us men, but
I just, the truth is I think that it's important that perpetrators of violence seek individual therapy first and foremost to deal with whatever issues that they have. And then once they address those components and, obviously then they can talk about kind of a marriage therapy or a couple therapy. But it's really important that that individual component is done first. Because we have to look at ourselves to be the best, me before we could be the best we. It's kind of one of those euphemisms that I've adopted. So I think you're right, Charles. I think it's important for them to begin with the perpetrator of violence. And just to make sure I'm clear, I want people to know that Family Life Center does work with men. We will house men in our shelter. We certainly segregate men, the men living quarters, the men sleeping quarters from the women sleeping quarters, but we do have men who come to our shelter, who receive services. It's probably about maybe about 1% of our victims are male here at the Family Life Center.
Well, and I'll say this, a lot of times it's important for us to interact with males because a lot of times they've been victims themselves.
Absolutely.
Whether they, and a lot of times when they were younger growing up and what they were exposed to, and they take those cues a lot of times from that environment. And so a lot of times the victims become victimizers, and to that end, it will help for us to interact with men to that end, since they are generally typically the victimizers, and when it comes to domestic violence and sexual violence. Very important.
Absolutely.
It's also why women put up with things as well, is because they saw their mother put up with it and their grandmother put up with it. And so It's just a family, it's just a thing that you do. That's, you know, that's
It's
the way you were
generational.
raised, right?
Mhm.
You don't know any better.
Right, right.
So it's important for us to have compassion for everyone, for all involved, so that a lot of times we don't have to make victims into victimizers.
Absolutely.
And I know we touched on it, but I just want to make it clear because we talked about all the different ways somebody can give. And just want to confirm that Family Life Center is a registered 501c3 and any deductions are tax deductible. Is that the case?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Family Life Center is a registered 501c3 and has been in Flagler County for over 33 years.
Oh. And if anybody's curious, I've worked with a number of charitable institutions, many states over the years. And I just want to assure you, 16% overhead, that is phenomenally low. They're being very, very responsible with any dollars given. So that is a kudos to you for working so efficiently.
As a
Thanks,
board
Charles.
member, as a board member myself, I can tell you we're watching every dime that comes in, every dime that goes out.
Yes, you are. And I love it. I think it's very important for us to have a community paying attention to what's going on to any nonprofit. You know, where we put our dollars, our hard-earned dollars is an important thing. So I welcome questions about our budget, our finances, how we spend money. That's an important conversation.
Trish is very transparent that way. Again, I can tell you from my experience as being a board member, she's all about making sure that every dime is accounted for.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well,
And you
I
mentioned the
think
St.
it's
John,
great. I'm sorry, Charles, go ahead.
mentioned was it the St. John's location? So there are other family life centers. And is this, what kind of organization is this, broadly speaking?
So I am one of 41 certified domestic violence shelters in the state of Florida. We are each independent. So each county is independent of one another, but we are sister shelters. We work in collaboration with one another. We are partners together to support victims, to educate our communities, and hopefully soon to begin having conversations with the legislative body about funding and best practices and things of that sort.
So it is a collective effort. Well, if there's only 41, so glad to have you
Right.
here. So this is something that touches every community.
Yes.
Unfortunately for that number, there's 67 counties in Florida.
Yes.
And somebody's dropping the ball somewhere, because to say that there's none of that in my county is being so unrealistic. But Trish, I know you do great work. I know they're wrapping this up, but I thank you for coming on and exposing and being transparent about what you have going on over there. I know we've been at it a long time, and still so many people don't understand that it's there. Hopefully we're going to help you do our part in getting the word out there and getting people to know that you're there, you can be trusted, your organization can be trusted. I know your board members are vetted. I've known quite a few through the years who they are, and they're wonderful people who care. It's a secret in the community that needs to, at least to its existence, needs to stop being a great little secret. You're on a great organization over there. We know that. Flagler County, Palm Coast, Bunnell, Flagler Beach, Beverly Beach, Marine Land, unincorporated. We need to know and understand what's going on here. I know there are a number of different polls that you pocketbook in this community. I know there are, but this is one of those things that we can go a long way to prevention. Right now, we're funded for the follow-up. But if we can get some more funding, we can begin to work on prevention. We can begin to get the lobbying going on to get the legislature to recognize repeat offenders and get them the help. And overall, I'm going to put a plug in for mental health. That's a big issue for me overall anyways. Start recognizing mental health problems as they're going on around you. Learn what people around you, learn what their norms are. They do something out of the norm, and it starts to take shape as a norm. These are little red flags. Not to go around pointing fingers. Oh, Rother's not doing well. He's too quiet today. But there's a lot going on. But anyways, thank you. And I don't want to get off on that soapbox, but thank you, Trish, for you and all of those who do the work over there. Nobody needs to know where this shelter is. Those who need it will find out through your services. But what the public needs to know is that for very little money, if everyone participated, we could get past response and reactive to proactive very quickly, and get the things and get. So what would be nice is to turn you from a reactive organization to so proactive your beds are empty. That would obviously be the sunshine and unicorn goal. We're realistic here, but I want to say to the community, be aware. It takes very little to do a whole lot.
Thanks, Nate. I appreciate your comments. And I just want to thank all of you again at Palm Coast View for not being afraid to have the conversation. That's a huge one. We need to talk about these hard topics. We need to talk about domestic violence, and hopefully you'll invite me back so we can talk about sexual assault, which is our other program, but mental health is a key part. And thank you for what you're doing. We need to educate our community, and I love the fact that you guys have created this and are putting it out there. So, and that I'm the first speaker.
first special guest.
I'm honored. I'm honored.
I understand. Robin has another question.
It's not so much a question, but it's a tip for anybody who's had to get a restraining order. And this is from personal experience. If you have to go to the point of getting a restraining order, make sure you have a copy of it on you at all times. Because if you go to another, even within your own community, but you go to another side, you see the perpetrator there, he's stalking you, whatever he's doing. If you go over to the policeman, they're not going to take the time to go in and research it. And it's even worse if you're out of town, because they definitely are not going to care. So you need to have a copy of it with you at all times so that you can show them this is a restraining order. You need to get that person away from me. And also, I would check to make sure, I'm not saying that this would happen in Flagler, but I've had my restraining order disappear a couple of times from the police station as well, because, they were buddies, drinking buddies or whatever. And so you need to check up every now and then and make sure that that restraining order is still in that police station and that it's still valid.
Thank you for that. And thank you so much, Trish. And we would love to have you back. Everything you gave was so beneficial. I have 3 pages of notes right here, just in everything we covered today. But domestic violence is something that's always been with us. It will always be with us. Don't allow the things that are important to us and that are going to remain important to us become any type of collateral damage because we're so focused on COVID-19. Absolutely do whatever you need to do to protect yourself, but let's keep protecting those who need an advocate from those closest to them in regards to domestic violence. Let's support the Family Life Center. We have easily half a dozen different ways we can contribute. Everyone can do a little bit. And as a community, let's come together. And thank you again, Trish. Sincerely, thank you.
Thank you.
Be sure to like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel under Palm Coast View.
Also, tune into our next broadcast supporting the outcome of the 2020 election.